The Golden Anniversary Gala for Wright Industries was held in the heart of Silicon Valley, where polished smiles masked ruthless ambition. The towering ballroom was filled with tech elites, politicians, and Wright family loyalists, all gathered to celebrate what they called a legacy of innovation. I stood near the champagne tower, invisible in a simple navy sheath dress, not even listed on the evening's program. No one noticed me. Why would they? I was just the quiet daughter, the one who didn't take over the family business, who walked away from her future. Across the room, my sister Victoria commanded attention in a sequin crimson gown, raising her glass high. To Wright Industries, she called, her voice sharp and practiced. To 50 years of excellence, and the next generation that will lead us forward. Applause erupted. My father, Richard Wright, beamed with pride. He'd made it clear long ago who his true heir was, not me. I used to think I didn't want the company, that it was enough to build small ideas in the shadows while Victoria led center stage. But as the years passed, I realized what I'd given up, what had been taken from me. When I pitched my prototype for adaptive neural coding 7 years ago, I remember my father's words exactly. Olivia, that sounds nice, but we're a real company, not a science fair project. Victoria smirked beside him and said, maybe you'd be happier at a think tank or something, somewhere quieter. They laughed. I did, in single quotes so I left, quietly, gracefully, with every intention of never looking back. But I didn't disappear. I built. They thought I was writing papers in obscurity. In truth, I had co-founded Novatech under a shell name, funded quietly by angel investors who didn't care about surnames. My partner, Alina Devroux, was a quantum physicist with a French accent and fire in her bones. Together, we built a prototype so advanced, it terrified the very firms trying to acquire us. We declined every offer. Victoria once unknowingly met with our liaison at a private summit, trying to acquire our tech before launch. She laughed during the pitch. Sounds like sci-fi. No wonder you're still in stealth mode. We were. And now, 6 years later, Novatech's Phase 1 technology was ready. An AI-powered quantum processor that didn't just learn, it predicted. It could eliminate waste in global supply chains, diagnose rare diseases, rewrite encryption standards. We didn't just have something valuable, we had something revolutionary, and we were launching it. The same day, Wright Industries was to announce their long-anticipated partnership with a now-outdated AI firm. The irony? Victoria thought it would secure her legacy. She had no idea the very startup that would steal her thunder was the one she dismissed as irrelevant. She didn't know it yet. But this gala wasn't just a party. It was a countdown. The morning after the gala, headlines across the tech world buzzed about Wright Industries' celebration. Photos of Victoria Wright in a couture gown, champagne-drenched speeches, and vague hints about an AI breakthrough to be announced. At their investor summit next week, I sipped my coffee in the Novatech war room, watching the feeds scroll across our monitors. My team was already deep in prep for launch day. Alina leaned against the glass wall, arms crossed. They're still betting on archaic neural nets. We're on quantum fields and predictive cognition. They have no idea we're about to eclipse them. Let them sleep a little longer, I said. The shock is part of the reveal. We were in a soundproof lab in San Mateo. No signage, no logo, just biometric locks, clean desks, and mine's 10 steps ahead of the market. Half of our 20-person team had been poached from top firms. The other half were unknown geniuses I'd found through back channels and PAHDADDDDHEHE forums. What kept them here wasn't just the paycheck. It was the vision. At Wright Industries, my ideas were cold and realistic. At Novatech, they were roadmap pillars. That afternoon, I received an encrypted ping from our general counsel, Mr. Rao. Regulatory clearances finalized. Phase 1 can be demoed at full capacity. That was the green light. We were launching in 6 days a live-streamed event that would unveil Project Helix, our quantum AI framework. It would disrupt sectors from logistics to biotech, and it would hit just 24 hours before Wright Industries' big investor event. A small part of me felt guilty. After all, Victoria and I once shared bunk beds and built cardboard forts in the basement. She used to braid my hair before school, but somewhere along the way, ambition replaced affection. She didn't just want to lead Wright Industries, she wanted to erase any trace that I ever belonged to it. I still remembered her words during our last real conversation, years ago. You always overcomplicate things, Olivia. Business isn't about solving the future. It's about packaging the Present. I said nothing at the time, but I walked out of her office and never returned. Now, I would return, just not as her sister. As her competition. That evening, I received a call from an anonymous number. I recognized the voice instantly. Olivia, my father said cautiously. Victoria told me you were in town. I almost laughed. It's been 6 years, Dad. I know. Look, I wanted to say I'm proud of what you've done with, your project. Nova something? So he had heard. It's Novatech, I said coolly. And it's not a project. It's a company. He cleared his throat. Right. Well, some of our people have noticed the buzz. Thought it might be worth discussing. Collaboration. Victoria's firm, Wright Industries. I interrupted. He hesitated. Yes, we're still family, Olivia. No, I said. We're not, and I hung up. Alina appeared in the doorway a moment later. They're scrambling. One of Victoria's advisors reached out to me. Didn't know I was your co-founder. They offered me a board seat if I handed over Inside Insights. I raised an eyebrow. Did you record it? She grinned. Of course. We were done being dismissed. Done being underestimated. Let them scramble. Let them cling to the idea that family means leverage. They'd learn soon enough. In 6 days, the world would see who Olivia Wright really was. Not the quiet sister. Not the castaway daughter. The architect of the future. 5 days before launch, while the world speculated about Novatech's mysterious AI prototype, I stood in a tailored black pantsuit beneath a ceiling of starlight LEDs, rehearsing my speech on a private stage rented in Palo Alto. It had to be perfect. I'd stayed silent for 2 long years of being the quiet sister, the less driven Wright, the one who couldn't handle pressure. That image was about to disintegrate. Run it again, Alina said from the front row. Tablet in hand, I took a breath. For too long, innovation has been stifled by those who gatekeep opportunity. But today, Novatech changes that. Project Helix doesn't just think faster. It understands intention, context, and consequence. This is not the future, it's the correction of the past. She clapped once. Perfect. Gives me chills every time. Back in the control room, I reviewed the final integration report. The AI was stable. The deep neural cognitive sync was flawless. We were ready, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. 2 hours later, I got my answer. A news alert popped up. Breaking. Wright Industries accuses Novatech of IP theft. Lawsuit filed in federal court. I laughed out loud. Desperate move, Victoria. Alina frowned. They timed it to shake investor confidence, but I had already planned for this. I opened my backup drive, pages of white papers, time-stamped code repositories, and emails, dated years before Wright Industries even began exploring AI models. The paper trail was concrete. My legal team had it all. Still, the timing stung. They weren't trying to win in court. They were trying to undermine the reveal. Later that night, I received a message request on LinkedIn from Victoria Wright herself. We don't have to do this in public. Walk away from the launch, Olivia. You'll be compensated generously. You don't need to embarrass the family. I stared at the screen for a moment, then typed, "You're confusing silence with weakness. See you at the summit." I hit send. That weekend, the world buzzed with anticipation. Novatech's name trended on every major platform. Some speculated we were bluffing. Others said we were the next DeepMind. Our website's live countdown timer ticked down relentlessly. 003, 47, 16. Meanwhile, I heard Wright Industries had brought in emergency PR teams. They moved their investor summit forward, now scheduled for the morning after hours. Typical. They'd spent years silencing me in the boardroom, doubting my instincts, excluding me from meetings I used to organize. But they forgot something crucial. The more you suppress someone's voice, the louder they become when they finally speak. And I wasn't speaking alone anymore. Our partners were ready. 2 Fortune 100 companies had quietly signed preliminary contracts. One of them had canceled a deal with Wright Industries to join our pilot program instead. It was all happening. On the eve of launch, I stood on the rooftop of our building, the city stretching out beneath a lavender dusk. Alina joined me, handing me a glass of champagne. To tomorrow, she said. To tomorrow, I echoed, and to the storm that would follow. The morning of the launch, I woke up at 4:30 a.m. without an alarm. No nerves, just clarity. I dressed in a crisp ivory suit, sleek hair, minimal jewelry. I didn't want to distract from the moment. Today wasn't about image. It was about impact. Our summit venue was packed hours before the keynote. Rows of journalists, Tech influencers, venture capitalists, and AI scholars buzzed in their seats. Security was tight. Wright Industries had already sent someone to observe under the guise of press. Let them watch. At 10 o'clock a.m. sharp, the lights dimmed. The Novatech logo pulsed on a 30-foot screen as I walked onto the stage to a burst of camera flashes. I smiled, not the polite, boardroom smile I used to wear for the Wrights, but something freer, anchored in power. Good morning, I began. For those who don't know me, my name is Olivia Wright. And yes, I said right. Murmurs rippled through the audience. I let the silence hang for a beat. But I'm not here as a representative of Wright Industries. I'm here as the founder and CEO of Novatech, an independent AI company born from being underestimated. The audience hushed. Even the cameraman froze, waiting. I clicked the remote, and a video played behind me, clips of our journey, tiny testing labs, late-night coding marathons, breakthrough moments with Project Helix. Then came the headline, Helix, the world's first empathetic AI framework. For decades, artificial intelligence has focused on performance, on power, scale, and speed, I continued. But the world doesn't just need smarter systems. It needs wiser ones. Systems that understand nuance, context, and intent. Systems that adapt not only to what you say but what you mean. I introduced Helix. The live demo followed. A simple exchange between a healthcare provider and Helix's AI, analyzing emotional subtext in a patient's voice and offering real-time, culturally sensitive guidance, not just clinical advice. There was an audible gasp, then came the applause. It didn't stop. The final slide. Novatech is now open to strategic partnerships. Applications begin at noon. When I stepped off stage, the first thing I saw was Alina holding up her phone. Look, she said. Wright Industries stock just dropped 11%. Mid-keynote, my breath caught. Already? Investors are jumping. Ship? Just then, my assistant rushed up. You have a media request. All the networks want interviews. And get this, Forbes just called you the queen of quiet disruption. I laughed. A real deep laugh. After all the condescension. After being told I was too soft, too quiet, too cautious, this was what they feared most, that I had been listening and building and planning. Later that day, I sat down for a live interview with a major outlet. The journalist, wide-eyed, leaned in. You didn't just disrupt the industry today. You disrupted your own family's empire. Was that intentional? I smiled. Let's just say, innovation runs in the family, but so does erasure. This was never about revenge, it was about reclaiming the space I was denied. That night, I got a call from my father. He never used to call. I saw the launch, he said, his voice stiff. You embarrassed your sister. She embarrassed herself, I replied calmly. All I did was finally speak. He hesitated. There's still a place for you here. Wright Industries could. I'm not coming back, I said. This was never about getting a seat at your table. I built my own. And then I hung up. I stood at the window of Novatech HQ as the sun dipped behind the skyline, watching the city light up like data points on a grid. Tomorrow, the Wrights would scramble. Their investor summit would be a mess, but for the first time in years, I wouldn't be in their shadows. I was the storm they didn't see coming. The Wright Industries annual investor summit had always been a polished performance, lavish venues, polished panels, fabricated confidence. This year was different. Rumors had already begun swirling before the event. Investors whispered in elevators. Journalists huddled by the ballroom entrance. Everyone was waiting to see how the once dominant empire would respond to the earthquake called Novatech. I had no intention of attending until I received a formal invitation in a sleek black envelope, not addressed to Olivia Wright, but to Miss Olivia Wright, founder and CEO, Novatech, a desperate PR stunt. Maybe. But it was also a door I had once begged them to open for me. Now I would walk through it on my terms. I arrived at the summit in a navy silk suit, no entourage, no theatrics, just power wrapped in composure. The moment I entered the ballroom, all eyes turned. Eleanor Wright, my sister, stood at the podium, trying to maintain her usual icy elegance. But her voice faltered when she saw me. Miss Wright, we weren't sure if you'd. I walked to the front row and sat directly across from the board members who once ignored my voice. I nodded politely. Let them stew. The keynote was disjointed. They tried to dazzle with graphs, projections, and stale buzzwords, ignoring the elephant in the room. Novatech's Helix had already redefined the industry's future. During the Q&A, a bold investor stood up, given Novatech's surge in valuation. What's Wright Industries' strategy for staying relevant? A long pause. Elena's mouth tightened. We're exploring strategic realignments. Another voice rang out, this time from an older shareholder. Why wasn't Olivia ever considered a leader in this company? Dead silence. Then the cameras turned to me. Would you like to respond, Miss Wright? I stood slowly. I was once told I didn't have the vision for leadership, that I didn't know how to command a room, I said calmly. So I left, and I built something better. Novatech doesn't just chase trends, we set them. And while this company was busy recycling outdated ideas, we were building an architecture of the future. The audience erupted in applause. My sister looked pale. I continued. You asked how Wright Industries plans to stay relevant. Perhaps the better question is whether it's time to pass the torch or be left in the dark. With that, I walked out. By the next morning, headlines blared. Novatech dethrones Wright Industries. Olivia Wright declares a new era. The sister who built the future. 2 weeks later, I received a discreet proposal from 3 major Wright Industries shareholders. They wanted to merge, not as equals. They wanted me to lead. After a series of intense negotiations, I agreed on one condition: Elena would step down entirely. When the deal finalized, I stood once again at the same boardroom table where I'd once been dismissed, only now, the nameplate in front of me read, Olivia Wright, Chairwoman and CEO. Elena was gone. My father had retired quietly, and Wright Industries had been reborn under Novatech's principles: ethics, innovation, and inclusion. Later, in a private moment, Alina walked into my new office and placed a small, framed quote on my desk. Let them think you're invisible until you're the one signing their paychecks. I smiled. They built a fortress to keep me out. I built a future they couldn't survive without. And I didn't just get revenge, I got the legacy.